Hello everybody, welcome to episode 11 of Firefight. I'm your host, David. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different for you today. I'm going to try and give you a mini battle report, if that's possible. It will be filmed from one sort of angle rather than the full 360 of the board, but all the action is down here, so the camera will be mainly facing this way. If I point it that way, you can see the main camera and these lights, but we're not too worried about that. Now, if you haven't watched episode 11 of Setting the Scene, go back and watch it, and I'll show you how I built this really simple and easy Primus readout display here, all based around the tile from Forge World. So what have we got? We've got Imperial Fists have taken up a very defensive position against the Mechanicum force, and essentially the objective for the Mechanicum is to destroy the Primus readout, but if you're the Imperial Fist, you need to repel the Mechanicum force. Now, I know what you're saying, it's a little bit unfair. You know, the Imperial Fists have got a double shot D weapon on their side, plus a ton of heavy weapons to repel the force. And yeah, you're right, it is very, very one-sided. But I think either side can win this game if they have the first turn. So what I'm going to do is, you don't usually see this in a battle report, you get one turn followed by another final. We don't reshoot turns or show you an alternative turn is what I should say rather. So what we're going to do, I'm going to do two battle reports here. I'm going to do one where the Imperial Fists get their first turn, which I think they can destroy the Mechanicum on the first or second turn, and then we'll reshoot and we'll do it with the Mechanicum having the first turn. And I genuinely believe either force has a chance to cripple one another. And if we look at the victory conditions of this game, for example, for the Imperial Fist, it would purely to be destroy the Mechanicum, to wipe them out, pretty much wipe their vehicles out. The troops we're not too worried about, but we'll see what happens to the troops in the second and the third turns perhaps. But for the Mechanicum, their sole mission is to destroy the Primus readout. So the force we've got here is expendable, and their primary objective is to destroy the Primus readout. They will target some of the infantry to give the vehicles a better chance and some other elements later on in the game, but their primary objective will be destroy the gun platform. So we're going to go into the army list. I'll take a load of photos and then give you the list thereafter. And then what we'll do is we'll go straight into turn one, where the Imperial Fists have the first turn. 1765 points of Imperial Fists, led by a Praetor. The Warlord trait is Child of Terror, and there is no Rite of War being used. Leading the army into battle is a Praetor. He's equipped with a Paragon Blade, a Plasma Pistol, Iron Halo, and Artificer Armour. Second HQ is a Master of Signals. He's equipped with a Plasma Pistol, a Cognis Signum, Nuncio Vox, and Artificer Armour, and he will be joining the Lascannon Heavy Support Team. The two troops choices for the army are two 10-man tactical squads. The sergeants are armed with power fists, and the marines are armed with bolters. The first of three heavy support choices is a Legion heavy support squad with 4 heavy bolters. The second one has 4 missile launchers, and the third has 4 las cannons. All of the sergeants are armed with power fists. 1765 points of Tagmata Mechanicum, led by an Archmagos Prime. His Warlord trait is Perfected Targeting. The army is led by an Archmagos Prime. He's been upgraded to have the Myrmidax special rule. He has 2 melter guns, one of which is mastercrafted. He has Jinskine and Cyber Familiar. The first troop choice is a Thalax cohort with 6 Thalax. 2 of the Thalax are armed with a photon thruster, and they have been upgraded to take the Destructor special rule. The second squad is identical, but they have 2 multi-melters. The squad with the photon thrusters will be carried into battle via a Trios armoured conveyor. The first of 3 heavy support choices is a Cryos Venator squadron consisting of 2 Venators. Heavy support choice 2 and 3 are 2 Kragnos assault tanks, both of which have been upgraded to have the Auto Simulacra special rule. Imperial Fist turn 1 movement, and not a lot happened really. This 10-man tactical squad and the Praetor move forward onto those defence lines, and that is purely just to add a blocking wall to prevent any of those Mechanicum forces breaking through, unless they want to go around on the flank. And then finally, at the back of the board here, there was a 10-man tac squad, but they have moved and embarked inside the Primus Redoubt. Now the reason why they've done that is because if you don't embark in the Primus, then it can be captured by enemy elements, so you have to physically occupy it to stop that from happening. So that is all that's happened. Everything else has stayed stationary, readying their weapons. Imperial Fist turn 1 shooting. Now the first thing to shoot has to be that double-barreled turbo laser destructor from the Primus Redoubt, and it has targeted the centre of the track of the Venator there on the left-hand side. It's not quite enough to clip the second tank, but it will surely rip out the first one if it does. So it's 2 shots. Let's scatter it, see what happens. And it scatters 4 inches, which gives it a direct hit. And then what happens on the second one? So it scatters back 3 inches, so we'll only still clip the first tank, but because they are a squadron, then a lot more could happen. So let's go work that out. All right, we have 2 solid hits on that Cryos. So let's roll to see what happens. We roll on the chart. And it is a 6. Fantastic. All right, so that is a devastating hit. The model suffers a penetrating hit that causes it to do 6 plus D6. So the first Venator is destroyed, and then what happens to the second one, because it's part of a squadron, it's a solid hit, so it loses D3 hull points instead of 1. Let's have a roll. And that is a 1 hull point loss. So not too bad. Not a bad opening shot there from the Primus Redoubt. Taking out one of those Cryos Venators was very key to the Imperial Fist success. Next we have the Lascannon Heavy Support Squad with help from the Master of Signals, firing at the side armour of this Trios Armoured Conveyor. Now the Marines get +1 to their ballistic skill thanks to the Master of Signals. They're firing into the side armour, but there is intervening models, so the tank will get a 5-up cover save. So here we go, 4 shots requiring 2s to hit. And that is a full complement of hits. Fantastic news. Strength 9, side armor 12, so they need 3 to glance, 4s to pen. Oh, we've got 1 out of the bag there, so it's still a 6. And then finally a Tank Hunters, and that is also a 1. All right, so there's 3 penetrating hits, but they get a cover save. 5-up for intervening. Oh, okay, so 2 go through, 1 was passed, and now let's roll on the damage chart. So there's +1 to this result. Let's see what happens. 5 and a 2, so it is shaken and immobilized, so that was a really good result. All right, next to fire is that missile launcher squad. They're going to target the other Venator as a wise decision, as there's some potent firepower in that vehicle. So there's 4 shots hitting on 3s. Okay, so not bad, 3 hits. They require a 6 to glance because it's a flare shielded armor 13 vehicle, but they will get to re-roll. Wow, look at that, 2 hits, 2 glances rather. Can they make it a 3rd? No, they can't. There is no intervening cover because they are much higher than the Lascannon team. So that is 2 hull points dealt onto that Venator. Then it took 1 already from the double-barreled turbo laser destructor. So that vehicle is wrecked. At the end of turn 1 shooting for the Imperial Fist, a great round of shooting. Taking out both of those Venators was very, very key to their plans, and then reducing the hull points down on that Trios Armor Conveyor and immobilizing it has certainly helped the Imperial Fist keep hold of their Primus Redoubt. We will now go into turn 1 for the Mechanicum. Mechanicum turn 1 movement phase, and the first thing to do is a leadership test for those Thalax, as their vehicle suffered an effect. So they need a leadership test or they'll be snap shooting, and they passed beautifully on a 5. So they can get out and they can fire their weapons to full effect. There was no movement other than those Thalax getting out that transport, as the Kragnos are going to stay stationary so they can bring their full firepower to bear on the Imperial Fists. Mechanicum turn 1 shooting phase, and to start, the Kreknos on the far edge of the board there will target the lascannon team, the lascannon armed marine right in the front. So it's 3 shots from the mortar battery. Not had a lot of luck with these, so we're hoping for a good roll. We need a hit really, and that is great news. That is a hit. We'll now roll the dice to get multiple barrages, see what happens. So it will go forward, we'll miss, and the last one will go back. So I'm just going to add those up and come back to you. Not bad in the end. 8 hits were caused. Now it is Fleshbane, so it will wound on 2s. Let's have a look. Wow, that is pretty good. That is a full complement of wounds, so really, really good. Now it does go center out, so we will start on the Marines first with the lascannons. So let's have a quick look at this. Just double checking, so it's the 3 lascannon Marines first, so let's do those. Okay, so 1 died, so 2 to go. Pass, 2 more. 1 more dead, and finally, yeah, okay, so in the end, only 2 Marines managed to die. Next to fire is the other Kreknos assault tank, and we'll target the same squad. We need to get rid of those lascannons, or the Mechanicum will suffer quite heavy losses. So let's see if the shot can hit. So it goes 6, so it will scatter 2 inches. I should have mentioned I'm targeting the lascannon marine at the back there. So we'll just get that measured up, and then we'll do the other 2 rolls for the shots. So it'll scatter forward, it might clip someone, and then the final one is a hit. All right, I'll go add those up and come back to you. Not bad, 4 hits in the end, so we'll see if we can wound. It's Fleshbane, 2 up, so we fail 1, we've got 3 armor saved, and we will start with the Marine at the back there with a lascannon. 3 up armor, passed, the second one passed, and finally the last one has failed, so that Marine is dead. The shot also causes pinning, so let's see if we can pin those Marines in place, and that's a 9, so that's a pass. But they have lost more than 25%, so let's see if they pass their leadership test, and they do also on the 9. All right, so that Imperial Fist squad is sitting pretty. The final act of the shooting phase for the Mechanicum is to fire 2 photon thrusters into this squad of missile launchers in the Primus readout to try and thin the firepower coming out. So we'll start with the photon thruster in front, requiring 3s to hit. Oh, not bad. That is 2 hits. No gets hot. That's a bit of a change. And then finally, wow, another 2 hits. Okay, really, really good. So our strength 6, toughness 4, and there was a -2 cover save. So let's see what happens. All right, so they all wound, which is brilliant news. Now, if you are in the Primus readout, you do get a 4-up invulnerable save, and that is down to a forced dome. So let's see if we can save. The Sergeant is first, but we'll let him take the casualty if he should suffer a death. So let's have a look. 4-ups. All right, and that is 2 failed. So the Sergeant and the lead missile launcher there is killed. They will require a leadership test. So let's have that test, and that is passed. The photon thruster also causes a blind check, so if the Marines fail, they will fire at weapon skill and ballistic skill 1. So let's see if they can pass or fail. Oh, they do fail. That's great. All right, so they will be firing snapshots next turn. The final act of turn 1 for the Mechanicum was for the Thalax here to use their jetpacks, and they thrust forward 7 inches, so quite respectable. I think other than that, it was a reasonable turn for the Mechanicum. Thinning the heavy weapon teams down was great, but the Mechanicum now need to brace for the firing from the Turbolader Destructor. Let's hope that the HQ and the Multi-Melter Marines will come in the next turn. Turn 2 movement from the Imperial Fist, very, very static. The missile launchers on the left-hand flank here, they're snap shooting anyway, so they move forward into the Primus readout to get a better field of vision to the battlefield. The Sergeant over there in the lascannon team moved in coherency with the rest of the squad. There is only 1 lascannon in that squad now, and that is all that has happened. They are just waiting now, ready to fire the Primus readout. Imperial Fist, turn 2 shooting. Tough decision really. Do you target the Thallax or do you target a Kragnos assault tank? In the end, the Imperial Fist decided to go for the Thallax, as they can quite easily remove them with those 5-inch blast templates. The Turbo Laser Destructor targeted that Thallax there in the middle. And let's roll up, see what happens. That is a scatter of 2 inches back, so if anything, that's favourable for the Turbo Laser Destructor. And then we'll roll for the second one. Oh, that is a massive scatter, 6 inches back. I think it's going to be a miss, but we'll have a look. Not bad, 4 hits were scored on that Thallax squad, so now we roll on the Destroyer chart. Now, any roll of a 1 will mean the Thallax escapes, but anything more will instantly kill a Thallax because it is considered to be strength 10, being a Destroyer weapon. So let's have a look and pray for some 1s. It is not meant to be, and 4 Thallax are completely destroyed. Next to fire is the 10-man tactical squad. There are 3 members that can fire rapid fire. Then 3 more that can fire single shot, and then finally the Marine next to the Sergeant will fire a long-range shot into the Thallax. So that is 10 bolter shots, which we conveniently have queued up here, requiring 2s because they're Imperial Fists, have disciplined fire. 1 fails to hit, but they will need 5s to wound. That's not bad. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wounds. Really good there from the Thallax. So they now require 4 up armor saves, which they pass 2, which is really good. And then they need Feel No Pain 6 up. That's really good. So 1 passed. So the Thallax there on the front has lost 2 wounds. The 3 missile launchers that are snap shooting, they might as well target the Thallax here. They've got a reasonable chance of causing a wound. So 3 shots requiring 6s because they're snap shooting. That is 1 6, 2s to wound. Oh, it's a 1. That's a bit of a shame. The Heavy Bolter squad does not have a line of target to anything it can harm. So it's just sat there in anticipation of the other Thallax squad showing up. And then finally we have this single Marine here, armed with a las cannon, will fire into this Kragnos assault tank. It's going to be a bit of a tough one, but we're going to give it a go. It's 2s to hit thanks to the Master of Signals in the squad, which he hits. Now strength 9, front armor 15, because it's a front armored 14 vehicle with a flare shield, so it's 15, so it requires a 6 to glance, but it does have Tank Hunter. Oh, that's a 2, Tank Hunter. Oh, and that is a fail, but worth a try, you know, it's worth taking off a whole point if we can. The only thing left to do to round out the Imperial Fist turn is for this Thallax squad to make a leadership check, as they've lost quite a high number of casualties. So they are stubborn on a leadership 8. Oh, look at that, they pass on an 8, great stuff. All right, that is it for the Imperial Fist turn 1. They've made a reasonable dent into the Mechanicum, but they've still got the Magos to come in with his Thallax squad. So let's see what happens. Mechanicum turn 2 movement phase, and at the start of the phase we need a reserve roll for the HQ and his squad to come in. We need a 3+ to get them on. All right, that is a 5, great stuff. I will now place the Mechanicum. This is where the Archmagos Prime would like to deep strike onto the battlefield to have any chance of blowing up that Primus readout in its first turn. So fingers crossed, we need a hit or a very, very small scatter. All right, that's not too bad. That's 4 inches directly up the board. I'll move them, then get back to you. End of movement phase turn 2 for the Mechanicum, and the Thallax and the Archmagos Prime have shuffled over 4 inches and will target the Primus readout to destroy it once and for all. Can 4 multi-melters be lucky? Who knows? The 2 Thallax here have pushed forward. They will either target the Marines in front of them, or they will try and go for the missile launchers there to try and take them out. Other than that, the Kragnos have stayed stationary to rain firepower down onto the enemy. And finally, the shaken result has come off the Trios, and it will shoot either into the missile launchers or the tactical marines, just to thin the numbers a little bit. This is the time for the Mechanicum to make their mark. Other than that, they'll be slaughtered if they fail. Mechanicum turn 2 shooting phase. Let's kick off with the main event. This is what this whole army is geared towards, and it's pinning its hope on for victory. So first of all, there's a lot going on here first. So the Archmagos Reductor will pass his Jin Skyne ability to the squad, giving them +1 ballistic skill. So they're all going to be hitting on 2s. He will then use his Warlord trait of Predictive Augury to twin link one of the multi-melters from the squad. He himself has 2 melter guns, one of which is master crafted. So he is actually ballistic skill 6 now. So if he rolls a 1 on the one that isn't master crafted, then he can roll a 6 to hit again. So it's quite convoluted, but some very cheeky tricks there from Mechanicum. But let's start off with the Archmagos Reductor, requiring 2s to hit, one of which is twin linked, which I'll roll first. Okay, unbelievably is a 1, so it is twin linked, and it does hit. And then finally the second one also hits. That's brilliant news. And then finally we'll roll for the 2 multi-melters in the squad at the back there. They require 2s. One's twin linked on the front, doesn't matter, they all hit. So that is 4 multi-melter shots or melter gun shots within half range of that building. So they all have Destructor except for the Archmagos, so he won't be able to re-roll his attacks. So we'll do his first. It's armor 15 with strength 8, so we need a 7 on 2 dice to glance. We really need a pen here. So that is a fail. 5, yeah, that's a fail. So that is a glance, okay, but there is a 5-up invulnerable save, 4-up invulnerable save from shooting from the Primus, and it is passed. All right, not going very well. Okay, now we'll go on to the 2 Thalax with multi-melters. First one is an 8, so that is a pen, and then the second one, 8, that is also a pen, but again, due to the Force Dome, it's a 4-up. Okay, 1 pass, 1 fail. All right, so it's AP 1. Let's see if we can destroy this building in 1 hit. I think we need a 6 to do it. Fingers crossed. Oh, it's a 2. All right, which takes it to a 4. I'm just going to check the chart and come back to you. All right, not an amazing result. It was a 4, but I also read on here that you get a -1 to the building damage. So it was a partial collapse in the end, a number 3 result, which essentially means everyone either embarked or on top of the battlements suffers D6 wounds. And despite causing 3, 4, 5, 6 wounds on the squads, 1 inside the building and then either side on the emplacements there, nobody took a wound. So it was pretty non-eventful. It was a bit of a risky gamble, but it might have paid off. But don't worry, the Mechanicum are in a reasonable position, so they might be able to push on. Next to fire from this HQ squad here is the lightning guns into the Primus Redoubt. They can cause some damage. It's a bit of a convoluted roll, but they can do some damage. So first of all, they require 2s to hit. Always roll a 1, brilliant. So they are strength 7. It's 15, so they will need a 6 to rend. But they do have the Destructor special rule on their weapons, so 6s. Okay, no, not a sausage, but it was worth a try. The Trias will target the Tactical Marines behind the wall there, requiring 3s to hit, twin linked. Thankfully, it's twin linked. So that is 3 hits, fantastic. Strength 6, toughness 4, that is 3 hits at AP 3, but they are stood behind a huge wall, and that is a 4-up invulnerable. Wow, 2 die, great. The weapon also causes pinning, but Imperial Fists are immune to pinning when they are sat behind a wall. So those 2 Imperial Fists have died. Next to fire will be the Thalax in front of them. 2 Thalax firing their lightning guns into the squad in front, so hitting on 3s. Oh, that is a total miss. Unlucky. Next to fire was this Kreknos assault tank, and it fired into the 3 missile launchers. Unbelievably, it hit 3 times. I don't think I've ever had such great success with that model. So now we're going to roll 9 dice. Just get those ready for you. 3, 6, 9. Wounding on 2s. Wow, okay, that is a full complement of wounds. It does ignore cover, but they will get a Force Dome save from the building. But because we are firing a blast weapon, the save increases to a 3-up. So let's see what happens. Look at that, bomb, bomb, bomb. even with a cocked dice, that has wiped the squad out. So some really great results there from the Kragnos. All right, over on the far side there, the other Kragnos will target the Las Cannon, the Delegatus and the Sergeant there. I just reread the rules just to make sure, and you roll it individually. So my fault, I just flipped the template previously. So we roll it every time now. So 4, so it only scatters 1 inch on the first one. That is a total miss from the second. And a hit from the third. So we will clip 5 Marines there. So let's go ahead and roll them up. So 2, 4, 5, requiring 2s to wound. That's not bad. That's 3 wounds. And we'll start with the Las Cannon armed Marine first. He's alive. Fail. Now we're going to the Sergeant, and he passed. So that's really good. Getting rid of those Las Cannons will really help the Mechanicum out. The Delegatus and Sergeant will require a leadership test for losing 25%. Leadership 10 will just passed on a 9. Good work. That's pretty much everything done for the Mechanicum. The only thing left to do now is the thrust move from either of the 2 squads in the assault phase. There was some thinking that maybe this squad could assault the Marines in front there to bring them into a protracted combat, but what that will mean is that will drag the Praetor closer to the Warlord, which the Mechanicum do not want. So all they're going to do is they're going to do their thrust move, and will try and move into a better position to fire at the Primus Redoubt. The thrust move from the 2 Thalax there, let's have a look. That's really good, 9. That's exactly what the unit needed. And then finally the thrust move from the Thalax there that deep struck. Let's have a look. Ooh, they got a 5. That's not bad. That'll bring them out of harm's way from the Imperial Fists. That's the end of turn 2 for Mechanicum. You can see that the Thalax there have just taken refuge behind that bunker. And then finally the Thalax have actually moved into the position where they would have hit if they had deep struck first of all. So not too bad. The only thing the Mechanicum will have to worry about now is that 10-man tactical squad in the building to come out and bring their bolters to bear against the Thalax. But we shall see what happens. Imperial Fist turn 3 movement phase, and the 10-man tact squad have got out of the Primus Redoubt. Have got out the little access hatch there to one of the balconies, and will pour their firepower into the Thalax. The heavy bolter squad, realising they've got not a lot of targets, have moved round. They will snap shoot, but they might get some shots off onto the Thalax that are emerging around the side of this building. The Sergeant and Delegatus, excuse me, not Delegatus, the Massive Signals have moved forward, and the Massive Signals will probably join the Heavy Bolter squad. Although it doesn't need it, you know, they're still hitting on 2s, but it's still not a bad thing. And then finally, the 10-man, or it's reduced now, isn't it, to 8-man tact squad, and the Praetor have moved forward to try and engage these 2 Thalax. And then finally, we've got the Primus Redoubt Turbo Laser Destructor to try and pick off one of 3 vehicles. Starting with the Primus Redoubt and the Turbo Laser Destructor, it's targeted this Kragnos assault tank here. So let's roll, see what happens. Ooh, 5, 6, 7. It's still a hit. It's still on the board if you target the centre of the building, the vehicle rather, and the second shot hits. Great stuff. All right, let's roll on this chart to see what happens. Okay, it's a 4 and a 3, which means we get D3 hull points. Roll low for the Mechanicum, hopefully. Let's have a look. That's 3, that's 4 hull points. That vehicle is wrecked. Some great shooting there. Next to fire is this 10-man tactical squad firing at the Thalax. They have 19 bolter shots, all hitting on 2s. All right, okay, so we fail 1, 2, 3. All right, so I make that 16 hits, which is pretty good. I've got to roll this separately because it's hard to hold the camera and roll the dice at the same time. So strength 4, toughness 5, 5s to wound. That's pretty appalling. We've only got 1 wound so far, and I'll roll the rest here. Not bad, so 4 total. Now we're on to save, so they need a 4-up armor save followed by a 6-up feel no pain. So 4-ups, 1 passed, 3 fail, 6-ups. Oh wow, okay, pretty good. And that is 1 Thalax armed with a lightning gun dead. At the end of the shooting phase for the Imperial Fist, not a lot happened. It was a bit of a tough decision really. This 10-man squad, this 8-man squad with the Praetor in, a charge was going to be really difficult. and there wasn't a lot of line of sight to the Thalax on the side here, so they ran but only managed 2 inches, which is a real shame. The heavy bolter team managed a massive 6-inch run to bring their heavy bolters to bear in the next few turns. There is this hump here, and it might be quite hard to see the Thalax in the next turns, but they can draw a bead to them somewhat. And then finally, the massive signals and the sergeant from the lascannon team have moved forward 1 inch on their run move, which was a real shame. That is the end of the Imperial Fist turn. Mechanicum turn 3 movement phase, and the Thalax here have just moved out so they can draw a bead onto that tactical squad. The Archmagos Reductor has moved out because he needs to be able to draw a line of sight onto that heavy bolter squad so the Kragnos can fire a bit more of a targeted shot to try and take them out if possible. But the Thalax and the Magos again will fire into the Primus readout. This will be the last time they get to shoot before they're salted or shot off the board. So let's see what we can do. Mechanicum turn 3 shooting. This Kragnos has fired its mortar battery into this heavy bolter squad, targeting the heavy bolter marine right at the front there. 3 shots. Let's see what he can do. Okay, that is a hit. That is brilliant. Great start. Second shot. Scatters wide. Let's have a look. 6. Yeah, that's a complete miss. And then finally, the last shot is also a hit. That will be a total of 6 hits. Rolling to wound, let's hope for no 1s. Okay, there is a 1 there, but that's not too bad. So 5 wounds in total, and now we need 3 up armor saves. Come on. They have all survived. That is sad news for the Mechanicum. 3 shots on this Trias armor conveyor into the 10-man tactical squad there, or the 8-man tactical squad rather. 3s to hit, twin linked. 1 miss. It hit. 2s to wound. Oh, come on. And then finally, just 1 4-up cover save because of the wall. And that is passed. All right, the Mechanicum having a torrid time. 2 lightning gun shots into the Marines there. Oh, 1 hit, 1 wound. 2s to wound, shred and rending. It's a wound, 3-up armor. Oh, it's failed. Nice. And that is 1 Marine killed. This is it. We're back to shenanigans again with this Archmagos Reductor. Now, they would have a better time of wiping the heavy bolter team out, which I had considered, but they will then get shot and charged, no doubt, from the Marines over there, and it will just keep them in a protracted combat. So we're going to go for the glory shot. However, in hindsight, equipping these with melter bombs would have been a better option because there's no force dome from melter bombs, and it might as well have done the job. But anyway, here we are. So we'll do the master-crafted melter gun from the Magos, hitting on 2s, which it does, and now the other shot, which also hits, and then we're going to pass +1 ballistic skill on to the rest of the squad. 2s to hit, 1 of which was master-crafted, or twin-linked rather, due to the water trait, but we didn't need it, so that's fine. All right, so double armor pen from the Magos, strength 8 against 15. Whew. So 7, 8 to glance. Nothing. And the last one, same result, 6. Oh, that was a shame. Next up with the 2 multi-melters, at least we've got Destructor on them, so we get to re-roll. Let's have a look. 6, that's not good enough. Or 7, I think that's a glance. Unlucky. And again, a 7. Oh man, I'm gonna re-roll that one, get a better result. And we do, we get an 18. All right, so this is the Force Dome on a 4-up for the glance. Pass, come on, we need to fail the rear one, the other one. And the other one is failed, so that is great news. Now it's an AP1 weapon. It's +2 to the chart, but -1 for this building. So let's roll it and add 1. Same result, it's a 3. Partial collapse. So we'll roll for the wounds and see what happens. After that round of shooting from the melter guns and the multi-melters, the building suffered 1 more hull point, reducing it to 8 now. And the partial collapse managed to kill 1 Marine from that tactical squad there. Next to fire, we've got 3 lightning guns, so they can do it. It's a bit of a long shot. They all hit though, which is great. We need 6s. Oh, Okay, we get none, but we get Destructor. Oh, again, absolutely nothing. Not good at all. The final act of turn 3 for the Mechanicum was to thrust move the 2 units. Unbelievably, this unit at the back here got 11 inches and this unit here got 12, which was unreal. So all that happened is that the Magos moved as close as he could to the Imperial Fist for the heavy bolters. Now the AP4 will rip the Thalax apart, but they have to get through the 2 up arm of the Magos, and we're hoping that he can stand up to it and get another turn of shooting into the Primus readout. Fingers crossed, you never know. We will now move on to the Imperial Fist. Turn 4 for the Imperial Fist, and this 7-man tack squad, including the Praetor, has moved 6 inches closer to try and eventually engage these Thalax, which are hiding out by the stacks there. This 10-man squad have moved out of the bunker, full 6 inches, moved through cover, and they are trying to bring their bolters to bear on the Thalax. Heavy bolters have stayed stationary so they can bring their firepower against the Thalax, and the Master of Signals and the Sergeant there have moved in to lend their firepower to the firefight. Turn 4 shooting for the Imperial Fist, and the double barrel turbo laser destructor has 1 vehicle to fire at, and that is the Kragnos assault tank. 2 shots into the centre of the vehicle. What will happen? That is a huge sector of 4 inches, but it still will clip the tank. And the second shot absolutely hits. All right, rolling for damage. What happens? There it is. The mighty 6 suffers D6 plus 6 hull points. Oh, D6 plus D6 hull points. Let's have a look. All right, so a total of 8 there, and that vehicle has been removed. Next to fire, 7 Marines with bolters have 9 shots into one of the Thalax there. They can only hit 1, so 9 shots hitting on 2s. That is a full complement of hit. That discipline fire really come into play there. Now we need 5s to wound. And that is 2 wounds. Okay, not too bad. 2 wounds, 4 up armor. 1 save, 1 fail. 6 up, or we lose a Thalax. And we do. That Thalax is dead. They'll need a leadership test or fallback on 8. They pass on a 4. Great stuff. Over on the far side here, the Master of Signals will fire his plasma pistol into the Archmagos to try and get through his armor. Now I know there is an orbital bombardment still left on that model there, but we're going to save it just in case. So first of all, the plasma pistol hits on 2s, which it does. Wounds on 2s, excellent. And now we have a 4 up invulnerable, which we save from the Magos. That's great. We also have a bolt pistol from the Sergeant in the squad. Hits on 2s, 5s to wound. It fails. All right, not too bad. Next, we're going to fire the heavy bolters. Here we go then, 12 heavy bolter shots hitting on 2s. Very good. Only 2 shots dropped. And now to wound. Strength 5, toughness 5, 4s to wound, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4 wounds in total. All right, we are going to take these on the Archmagos. 3 wounds at a time. Failed 1, brilliant. Okay, so the Archmagos does take 1 wound. That's the end of the shooting phase for the Imperial Fist. Not bad. 1 wound down on the Magos there was pretty good, and taking off 1 wound to kill a Thalax on the fire in there was also good. You know, that turbo laser destructor killing the Kragnos tank in 1 shot was pretty effective. Next, we'll go on to the assault phase. Imperial Fist assault phase, turn 4. Now, this tack squad will charge the Thalax, because what we don't want to do is give the Mechanicum another turn to shoot. So it is a 4-inch charge, but it's -2 for going through cover. Can they do it? Oh, well, it's a 5 straight away. Yep, they make it on a 9. We'll just quickly do Overwatch. So Overwatch from the Magos hits on 6s. That's 1 hit. 2s to kill. Brilliant, and that will kill a Marine. 2 multi-melters from the squad. Fail, that's a shame. And then finally 3 lightning guns from the squad. They also fail as well, but not too bad. The only thing to remember, sorry, of course, the Magos has a master crafted weapon, which I perhaps should have randomised. So 1 to 3, it was the one that missed. 4, 5, and 6, it wasn't. No, so that's fine. We're okay there. So we do kill 1 Marine. At the start of the combat, the Imperial Fist Sergeant issued a challenge, which was accepted by the Archmagos. However, the Archmagos will attack first. He only has 2 attacks, but it is with a power weapon, which is good news. So he hits on 4s. That is 2 hits, brilliant. And he's strength 4, toughness 4, so 4s to kill that sergeant. There it is, that sergeant is dead, nullifying that power fist. Next strike at initiative 4 is the Marines into the Thallax. There are 7 Marines, 1 base, +1 for charging, 14 attacks, hitting on 3s because they're weapon skill 4 versus 3. That is pretty good. Only 2 missed, wow. But it's strength 4, toughness 5, requiring 5s. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really good. 4 up armor save. 3, that's not bad. 6s for feel no pain. Wow, and only 1 wound lost on one of the Thallax. That is some good rolling. The Thallax are attacking back, 2 attacks each, 10 attacks requiring 4s to hit. Oh, that was terrible. Look at that. So 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. Strength 5, toughness 3 is 2. Sorry, strength 5, toughness 4 is 3s to wounds. That's 2 wounds. Now we need 3 up armor, and they have both passed. At the end of the combat, that combat is a draw with the sergeant losing a wound and then the Thallax losing a wound, so that is a draw. I think that is the end of the game, to be fair. I think it's fair to assume that the Thallax will be able to hold out in that combat, and either that or get cut to shreds from the Marines they're in combat with, or the Marines from behind will charge, and then they'll get a charge from the Marines here. So I'm going to call it there, and we'll say that the Primus Redoubt has firmly been defended by the Imperial Fists. All right, that was the end of the first round of this battle. Really interesting result. We knew the Turbo Laser Destructor was going to be very powerful and just delete units every turn, and it did not disappoint. It was either a ton of Thallax in one shot, or it was a vehicle every turn. So really good effort from the Primus Redoubt. We knew it was going to be tough, but it proved really well there for the Imperial Fists. I think the deep striking Thallax with the Archmagos did a really great job. You know, armor 15 is really, really difficult to get through, and then once you've contended with that, you've then got that Force Dome. So I think in hindsight, you know, a Chain Fist on that Archmagos Prime would do much better, but I also think some Melter Bombs would have been really good as well. But, you know, the army wasn't built that way, so there's no Chain Fist represented on the Magos. And I really like to play WYSIWYG as much as possible. So, you know, and also if I come up against a Primus Redoubt in my future games or battles, then I need to know how to deal with it. So, you know, I appreciate it was a bit of a weird one, just one person playing, but I tried to make decisions for both sides that were the most logical. And I think towards the end, you know, the Marines coming out that building and then charging them in their next turn was the best thing to do, because it would have just tied the Thallax up and prevented them from shooting. By that time, other elements from the army would have got round and just kept that unit in combat. I think the Primus would have then finally taken out the final Triaros armoured conveyor, but it had no really bearing on the game anyway. It was out of range of its Volkites, and it could only fire the Mauler bolt cannon, and we saw how that went in previous turns. Interestingly, I did notice that on the Primus, it does have a limited field of view, so there is a blind spot, and I'll try and highlight them on the board if I can with a bit of a white line. So if I could have got either the Trios here, or the Kreknos rather, or a Trios in this kind of angle, it would have been better. But I think that's a little bit sneaky, and it was just purely to be a head-on kind of assault. And the whole thrust of the army was to get the Magos with his unit into the Primus Redoubt and fire their multi-melters and their melter guns. I think the Myrmedex Archmagos did really, really well there, just demonstrating, you know, +1 ballistic skills to a squad. Mastercraft one is his weapon, and then his Warlord trait can twin link one of the weapons in the squad, which was really good. You can play with Caleb Decima, And he has a really thing, I think it's called Datagen, and it's essentially a 3d6 haywire attack, and that would do absolute wonders to this Primus Redoubt. The other things you can do is the Archmagos Reductor, he can give, I think it's +1 to penetration against vehicles, which is what the Reductor's there for. It's there to blast emplacements and fortifications apart, ready for other elements to come in. If I look at the Kragnos, I think they did really well. They certainly did better in this game than they have done in any previous game, really helping to get rid of those heavy weapons, which I think was really key. However, because of the Primus Redoubt was such a beast, the Turbo Laser Destructor there, that took the vehicles down anyway, so it didn't really matter. Looking at the Imperial Fist point of view, I think they did a really good game, to be honest with you. Okay, the Praetor was left out, but he did a good job, you know, and I kept the Thalax away from him because that Paragon Blade can whiz through Thalax quite quickly. So I did avoid him at all costs. And you can employ that in other games as well. You can avoid characters if you want to. And if they are foot slogging, you've got a reasonable chance if you're a fast moving force. I didn't fire the orbital bombardment from the massive signals. To be fair, I forgot about it until sort of the latter part of the game, but it didn't really need it because the Imperial Fist did such a great job. It was a one-sided game. You know, we used the Turbo Laser Destructor to great effect, but it was all about that what-if chance. A better list would have been, if you're a Marine player, you know, a couple of drop pods, one armed with a Leviathan maybe, and it's a little 5-barrel melter gun. That would have been pretty good. Or some support Marines with multi-melters. That would have done a really good job. Then you've got other things, you know, like if you're an Iron Warrior player, you've got all sorts of artillery and barrage, and as has all the other legions, but they're kind of more of a classic kind of thing. It's more of a Penarabo trying to break down Dawn's defences, which would have been a really good situation if we could have got the models. Anyway, I do think the battle would have turned maybe if the Kras had a chance to fire, and that is exactly what we're going to do in the next phase. We're probably going to only do turn 1, turn 2. So we'll do turn 1 with the Mechanicum coming in, the Kragnos firing against infantry, and more importantly, the Venators getting a chance to target the building. And then in turn 2, we'll automatically bring the Magos down in turn 2 just to see what effect he'll have. He'll get his turn of shooting, because I think by turn 2 the Turbo Laser will target the Cryos and destroy them. So we'll just see what happens. We'll try and do better than 2 hull points. Alright, I'm going to re-rack, reset, and we'll go straight into Mechanicum turn 1. Mechanicum turn 1 movement, and a much aggressive movement phase from Mechanicum in this second round here. The Kragnos on the far end there has moved 6 inches, and it will try and get its sentinel weaponry in range of those Marines in the front line there. The Troios has moved forward 6 inches, and the Thalax have got out and moved 6 inches. The Venators have stayed still. They don't want to get closer because they don't want to get risked being charged by that tactical squad, but know they're going to be targeted by the Turbo Laser Destructor there. And finally, the Kragnos on this side has gone forward 6 inches, again to bring its sentinel weaponry in range of this tactical Marines. Trying to thin them out will be quite good this time around. Mechanicum turn 1 shooting, and here we go. We're going to open up with the Cryos Venators, 8 shots, 4 apiece from those vehicles into the Primus Redoubt, hitting on 3s. That's not a bad roll. We dropped 3. Okay, I can handle that. That's not too bad. They are strength 9, but they have the Ordnance special roll. So we roll 2 dice, pick the highest. So I'm going to add a yellow dice here to know what I've done. So here we go. We need 6s to glance. Okay, so nothing there. Oh, nothing there. Come on, come on. That is a 6. Brilliant. At least that's 1 glance. Good stuff. We'll put that to a glance. Next one. Nothing. Come on. 2 more. Oh, there's 1. That'll do. And finally, yeah, look at that. So 3 glances in the end. That is really, really successful. But let's not forget there's a force dome on top of that building there. So 4 ups to get through and cause some damage. Okay, so 1 got through. Okay, not too bad. It's reduced from 10 to 9 hull points. No additional damage as we didn't penetrate it. We could only glance, but that was a good start. All right, next wave of shooting. I'm in two minds about what to do here. The Thallax with the photon thrusters could target the bunker. They have photon thrusters, and they are a Lance special rule as well. So they've reduced the armor down to 12, but we're still needing 6s, and they do have Destructor. Or we've got a really good chance of maybe taking out the entire squad of missile launchers or the las cannons. So it's a really tough call. My plan is to put the Kragnos and the Trios into the Marines to kind of thin their numbers out. But I do think that the las cannons can cause a problem. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus fire with the Kragnos on the far end there into the las cannon team. So what I'm going to do is going to fire the blast marker. We'll aim right for the center of that Marine there with a las cannon right in the center, right in center of the picture there, and we'll see if we can cause any damage. All right, so let's grab a scatter dice, 3 shots. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that is a hit, fantastic. Now I've just reread the rules for barrage and blast. So barrage, you would do them individually, but if it has the barrage word in there, then you roll the dice, it centers, and then you scatter off the originally placed template. So we're going to do that scatter now. That is also a hit, lovely. And finally, wow, 3 hits. That is the best round of shooting I've ever had. I'm going to put a template over there, give it a quick measure, and work out how many wounds. Unbelievably, everybody was hit by that little 3-inch template, which is absolutely amazing. So there's 18 hits in total, and because it's Fleshbane, we need 2s to wound. So let's see what we can do. Look at that, 3 1s straight away, brilliant. So only six wounds so far, and we'll just roll this twice. Sorry, roll it again rather. Oh my word, how many 1s is there? Okay, so 12 in total, not amazing. All right, rolling for wounds, the sergeant is first. He only has 3 up armor. The character Master Signals towards the back, but let's start with the saves. We need a 3 up, saved, wow, saved, dead. Okay, the sergeant's dead. Now we're on to las cannons. They've all saved unbelievably. And finally, 1 las cannon full. So a little bit disappointing, but obviously that 3 up armor is proving pretty resilient. The Kragnos continues to fire with its lightning blaster sentinels, and they can target a separate unit. So they will both fire at the tactical Marines in the line there. The profile is 18-inch range, strength 7, AP 5, heavy 3, shred and rending. So a reasonable chance to get through those Marines. They are hitting on 3s. Let's have a look. Wow, that is fantastic. They all hit unbelievably. Strength 7, 2s to wound. So 1 fail, but we do get a shred, and that is a rend. So we've got 2 rends and 4 wounds. So firstly, what we'll do the wounds first. There's 2 Marines before we get to the Praetor there. So 2 wounds, passed, same again, passed. Wow, I should play power armor, shouldn't I? And then finally, the rends which get through, they get a 4 up cover save for that building. 1 pass, 1 fail. So 1 of those Marines has been killed. Next to fire is the Kragnos on the far end there, and that will also target the las cannon team. They're quite a threat here. Again, in the center there for that Marine, and we should clip all 4 of the Marines. I know if we get a hit. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that is a scatter. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. It will go 4 inches, but it looks like it will clip the Master of Signals there, but that's okay. Now we'll roll the additional scatters, see what happens. So hit, that's good news. And then finally, another hit. Great stuff. All right, I'll come back to you with the result. Yep, the Master of Signals is hit 3 times, needing 2s to wound. They all wounded, fantastic. And now he just needs his Artificer armor save, which he made really easily. Okay, a little bit unfortunate there from the Kragnos. Again, the Lightning Blaster Sentinels will fire on the Tactical Marines defending that wall. 3 shots, here we go. Okay, not so good this time. That's not too bad, missed twice. Strength 7, shred and rending. No rending hits, that's fine. So now we'll just do 3 up armor saves. Oh wow, okay, and those 3 ups have come through, so good on the Imperial Fists. Next to fire is the Mauler Bolt Cannon from the Trios Armoured Conveyor into the missile launcher toting Imperial Fists in that bunker there. They require 3s to hit, twin linked. Okay, twin linked, this is good. Okay, so only 2 hits, 2s to wound though. 2 wounds, 4 up for the Force Dome shield. Okay, 1 pass, 1 fail, so 1 missile launcher has been killed. The Volkite Sentinels on the Trios armored conveyors will also fire into the Marines at the wall there. 2 shots each, strength 5, AP 5. Okay, so there's only 2 hits there. 3s to wound though, not too bad. Okay, that's 1 wound, and then finally a 3-up armor save. Oh man, that armor save is just too good. All right, after all that, the decision has been made to target the Las Cannon team over on the far side there. The photon thrusters can see. There will be a 4-up cover save, but because of Jin sight, it will be a -2, so they'll get a 6-up cover save. So let's see what we can do. They are get hot, hitting on 3s, 1 hit. No get hot though. Oh, okay, so 2 hits total. It'll be 2s to wound, strength 6, we do, and now 6-up cover save. Let's have a look. Oh, look at that. That is unbelievable. Just when you need, just when you need 2 6s, it comes up for the enemy. Very disappointing, but some great rolling there for the Imperial Fists. The only thing left to do at the end of the shooting phase is to do a blind check on the Las Cannon team. So initiative 4, so 4 or under. Okay, so they pass. They will not be snap shooting next turn. And then I just quickly did the assault phase where the Thalax unit on the left-hand side here managed a massive 9-inch thrust. Unfortunately, they are still in the firing arc of the emplaced weapon. However, I don't think it's wise targeting those Thalax because the Cryos Venators have to be the target in the first round for the Imperial Fist. So, in summary, I think the channel dice let the Mechanicum down, which is not good because they were too good at rolling armor saves and cover saves for the Imperial Fist. But nice to get a little bit of damage there on the Marines, but not a massively successful turn. Imperial Fist turn 1 movement. Nothing massive happened. Pretty much everything stayed still except for that 10-man tactical squad there behind the defense line. They can see through the opening of that building and will be able to target those Thalax. So they'll get some reasonable shots off. Unfortunately, the heavy bolters, you know, the missile launchers, they don't really have a target because everything they can target, they cannot damage thanks to the flare shield on the vehicles. But the Las Cannon team will get some shots off and they will try and bring down some vehicles, but it's the Turbo Laser Destructor that has its pick of the match, and they will try and bring down the Cryos Venators. Imperial Fist turn 1 shooting and starting off with the double-barreled Turbo Laser Destructor fires into the Cryos Venators there, targeting the Venator on its middle of the right track to try and clip both of them. This is the scatter. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's a big scatter actually. It's 8 inches away from the tank, so it still might clip 1. And let's roll for the second one just to see what happens. Okay, that is a hit. All right, so we are in trouble. I'm just going to check out the firing arcs and come back to you. Both of the Venators were hit. So let's roll for the Venator on the left-hand side first. Okay, so that's a 2, so that's good. So it suffers D3 hull points, which is a 5, so that's a 3, so that will destroy the vehicle. And then finally, the one on the right-hand side, what happens? It's a 6. Always happens. Both of those Venators have been destroyed from the 1 shot, or 2 shots rather, from the Turbo Laser Destructor. Sad times for the Mechanicum. Next to fire is the Las Cannon team. They've got 3 Las Cannons that have managed to draw a bead into the side armour of that Trios armoured conveyor. So no flare shield to contend with. There is, however, intervening cover, so it'll just be a 5-up cover save. So let's see what happens. We are hitting on 2s thanks to the Cognis Signum from the Master of Signals there. And they all hit. Great stuff. Oh, it's worth noting there's only 3 Las Cannons, not 4, but they all hit, so it doesn't matter. And now we're strength 9, 2 dice. Pick the highest. So let's see what happens. We need 3s to glance, 6 4s to pen. So that's a pen, a pen. Oh no, it's a pen. All right, so it could potentially be dead. Just need 1 cover save to keep it alive, maybe. Oh, look at that, good. But 2 do go through, and it's +1 to the damage chart. Let's see what happens. Of course, 2 6s. The channel dice is letting the Mechanicum down, and that Trios armor conveyor has been destroyed. Next to fire the Tactical Marines, there are some rapid fire shots and some standard shots, but 14 in total, and then we'll go into the Thalax there just in front of them. I think it's better to fire with the bolters on rapid fire and get more shots rather than assault them. Although it will tie them up, but it will just be a massively protracted combat, which we're going to try and avoid. So let's go for it. 2s to hit with those bolters. Wow, look at that. Only 3 failed. So what's that? 11 hits, I think, off the top of my head. Strength 4, toughness 5, requires 5s. Just re-roll that one. It was a 5, excellent. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wounds. All right, so now we need 4 up armors for the Thalax. Not bad, 2, and now 6s. Need one of these at least. Oh, look, 2 6s came up trumps. That's good. So one of those Thalax has suffered 1 wound. That is the end of the Imperial Fist turn. The missile launchers, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, can't penetrate the flare-shielded front armour of those Kreknos tanks, and the heavy bolters, again, are in the same position. But it has been an absolutely devastating turn for the Imperial Fists. They've done a great job peeling out those vehicles from the Mechanicum. Next, we're going to turn 2 for Mechanicum and see if we can bring some magic to this game. Mechanicum, turn 2 movement phase. We do have reserves. The Arc Magos is in reserves, waiting to come in and wrought some damage upon these Imperial Fists. In the segue, I did say that he would automatically come on, but in hindsight, I think we should just play to the rules. So we need a 3+ to come back on. Oh, look at that, 6, nice. And following the trend, the Magos will deep strike in the same position, just here next to the Primus readout. The Magos is in place, so let's see if we can get a hit on that scatter dice. Oh, look at that, we do, fantastic. All right, I will place the rest of the Thalax on the board. End of turn 2 movement for the Mechanicum. The Kreknos here has moved 6 inches off to the left to try and get out of the firing arc of that Turbolaser Destructor, but unfortunately the track is just in its arc, so that was a bit of a shame. The other Kreknos has just moved forward and is going to try and bring its Sentinel weaponry on the Praetor there, or the Las Cannon team. And then finally, this Thalax squad here rolled 5 for their move through cover and are in a better position to try and take out those missile launcher armed Marines, or they will try and target the TAC Marines in front of them. We'll have to see. But we will move on to the Arc Magos over there, and he will try his shenanigans again with his melter guns and the squad's multi-melters. Mechanicum, turn 2 shooting. Let's remind ourselves the shenanigans that goes on with the Magos here. So he's ballistic skill 5. He will +1 ballistic skill onto the rest of the squad, including himself, making him ballistic skill 6. One of his weapons are mastercrafted, so we'll do the mastercrafted first. It hits, and the one that's not also hits. Great. And now we will do the Thalax. One is also twin link, not mastercrafted, so it's twin link. So let's see what happens here. Okay, twin link, thankfully. Brilliant. And the other one will hit on a 2. Brilliant. Okay, so that is 4 melter and multi-melter hits, so they're all the same essentially. Now let's remind ourselves we're strength 8 against 15 armor, so we need a 7 to glance on 2 dice, and 8 will pen. So it's a big ask, but let's see what we can do. Double 1, brilliant. So that was from the Magos, so nothing. Second one from the Magos, absolutely nothing. But we get Destructor on the Thalax for these 2 shots. So let's have a bit of luck, shall we? Oh, that was a 3 and a 4, so that's 7. Oh, that's a glance. I'll risk it for a pen, okay? So we'll re-roll it. 7, same result, okay. And the last one, 6. I'm going to risk it for a pen. Come on, double 6. We get a 4 off the board. Re-roll this last one. A 4 and a 4, that's 8. Okay, so that is 1 glance and a pen, but the 4 stone will come into play here. So let's have a 4 up for the glance and a 4 up for the pen. Unbelievable. All right, I think in all honesty, I am going to call it there. It was a gamble, you know, to get some shots off with the Venators. It would have nice to have had a second turn, but that squad is severely struggling. I'm going to talk about it when we come back after the post game. All right, there it is. That is the end of 2 games and 2 possible outcomes for this particular scenario. Unfortunately, the Mechanicum was not victorious by any stretch of the imagination. However, although I was playing against myself, I learned some really valuable lessons from that. So I'll go through those in a minute. But a lot of you are wondering, well, why didn't the Imperial Fist do something a little bit different the second time round? The reason why I didn't do that is because I just wanted them to react the same way they did in the first game, just to see if the first turn did make a difference. I actually think in the first game, the Magos and his Thalax did a better job at taking on the Primus. I know we had 2 or 3 turns, but I think it was quite evident after the first round of shooting for the Magos that it just wasn't going to do the business. But I think losing those Cryos Venators in the first turn of the Imperial Fist turn was really key. I think they could have done a little bit more damage in the second turn, but you know, if you were the Imperial Fist player, they would absolutely be the unit that you would target. If we look over at the Mechanicum list, there are some real extra buffs which you can get in a Reductor force. I talked about Caleb Decima. He's really effective for taking down armoured targets, buildings and super heavies, for example. But also if you play Reductor, I think they have a special called the Master of Destruction, which means you can add an additional AP onto a weapon. So if you're firing an AP1 weapon, instead of getting +2 on the chart, you'll get +1, which would really help in this situation, because obviously you get -1 to the AP of a weapon when you shoot against this particular building. So that would have helped, that would have leveled it back up again, and may have got a detonation, but I appreciate it's all about rolling 6s, isn't it, and then getting those AP1, AP2 add-ons. The other thing I was going to mention as well, I think the Mechanicum did really well. I very rarely deep strike a unit with a Magos because I prefer, I've talked about this loads of times, I prefer predictability rather than the randomness of scattering, but super lucky to get 2 hits in this turn, in these 2 games, which I was really pleased at. So maybe it might be a little bit more risky in the future. I don't know, like I say, I like predictability. If we look at the performance of the rest of the army for the Mechanicum, my faith has been restored in the Kragnos. They did a really great job of saturating the target. Appreciate the 3-up armors held really strong in this game, but they were generating a significant number of hits, and then that 2 to wound due to Fleshbane is really good. So, you know, you're relying on your opponent rolling 1s and 2s, which is, you know, it does happen, and you can wipe out a Terminator squad with a few unlucky rolls, you know. So I was quite pleased with them, really. I've always had really bad luck with hitting. Just they scattered just far too much, and I just don't get any results. So quite pleased with them. Other than that, I've learned a ton of lessons. You know, I appreciate the Mechanicum list was not tailored to take on this, but I've only got what I've got, so it would be unfair to me to say, oh, they've got that now and they've got that, just to try and tailor my list, because the army was built to be an all-comers list, which I think is really important. So if you're out playing games at tournaments or clubs or whatever, it's fun to have a tailored list, sure, but I think in general you want an all-comers list, as I mentioned, and that's what this Mechanicum list is. It can take on pretty much everything and damage everything. You know, everything's got the ability to AP1, AP2. A lot of it is Lance, or it's high strength, low AP. And does have saturation fire from the Kragnos, and some cases the lightning guns. When you pour enough lightning guns into a target, it will come down. So I'm quite pleased with the overall performance of the army, but taking on a Primus Redoubt is a tough prospect, and I doubt very much you'll ever get to a tournament where someone at a 3 or 4K tournament will bring a Primus Redoubt, and if they are, it will have been noted in the notes, or you might have been forewarned. So I think it's very unlikely that you'll come across this. I think in the future, you know, if I do expand the Mechanicum, how will I deal with something like this, or a Knight, for example, or a Falchion, or something like that? I think the Mechanicum might struggle, but we might introduce some Knights much further down the line. We're talking a year's time. I'm kind of finished with the Mechanicum. They are where I want them to be. As you all know, if you follow the channel, the next expanse is into Death Guard, which are going to be pretty well resourced, we'll say, so they'll have pretty much access to everything and all the weapons that come with shutting down larger fortifications and super heavies. If we quickly look at the Imperial Fist, I think they played an iconic storyline to the Imperial Fist. They had a fortification and they held it. You know, the chaff Tactical Marines at the front. They did a great job of deterring or blunting the forward assault. I appreciate that Mechanicum doesn't have an assaulty army, and we haven't got an assault vehicle to come out from, but they certainly pushed the Thallax round the side, which reduced their firepower. And the bolters were effective, I think, in the first game nonetheless. Admittedly, the heavy bolters didn't really have a target, but I think in any game, you don't get to use your army. There will be some units that won't get to shoot, or they won't get a line of sight, or they'll shoot heavy bolters against an armor 14 target, which won't have any impact. So, you know, you will always get something where they will be able to target everything or nothing, you know, and I think sometimes you'll play a whole game and go, oh, that unit did absolutely nothing. They stood in that building and they walked across the board and did nothing. No captured objectives, didn't manage to shoot or kill anything. But that just happens. But I think also if you're an opponent and you can force your opponent to waste a unit by moving out of its firing arc or denying it or putting armor 14 in something that it can't hurt, then that's a really good play as well. And the Mechanicum Force did that beautifully with the front armor and the flare shield. So it does reduce the firepower coming in and will force the opponent to go for side shots, and that's not always possible, particularly in a hammer and anvil style as well, because the field of fire is very limited and the enemy is generally coming up towards you, and if you do have a flare shielded vehicle, it is quite safe. The las cannons though did a great job. That side armor shot into the side of the Trias armor conveyor, boff, took it out. Good work. I think on the whole, a really interesting game, and I hope you found it interesting as well. You know, I don't do this for my own sake, I do this for you guys, so hopefully you enjoyed it, and maybe you've learned something from it, I'm not too sure. I think the dice were super hot in favour of the Imperial Fist. I think Mechanicum were a little bit unlucky, but I've got myself to blame for that. Anyway, I've talked for far too long. I really hope you've enjoyed this firefight. It was obviously a much more extended mini battle report, I guess. I appreciate I was playing against myself, but I imagine some of you guys were solo playing at home as well, perhaps. Although I see some of you now having a bit of garden hammer, which is really cool. So if you're out there in the garden with your friends over at your 1 meter distance, that's quite achievable. So good stuff to see some games happening. All right, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them below or email me, david@the30kchannel.com. Love to hear your comments, and I will see you in the next one.